Hello, welcome back to Season 3, Episode 9 of Uncanny Oddities, and tonight we will be talking about sailors and their superstitions. So, obviously, sailors, when they go out to sea, uh, apparently, I recently found out they have a lot of superstitions. And I've been a big fan of sea shanties, so, I know a few of them off the top of my head. See James in the chat tonight. Good to have you back with us tonight. Sorry, I've been doing some shorter episodes recently, trying to switch things up and, just see how it works. But tonight, we're talking about sailors and their superstitions. So, because we briefly got into it with some of our last two episodes about ghost ships, we kind of got into a little bit about superstitions that sailors had. So, I decided to look a little deeper into their superstitions and when I could, some of the stories behind them. So, I collected 20 superstitions for us to go through tonight. So, the first one I got is actually the one that Spider mentioned on our show the other day. Red sky at morning or night. So the superstition goes like this: red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailor take warning. And we briefly talked about this the other day. Uh, this is one of the most enduring maritime sayings, like one of the most popular, that you hear the most often when you start looking into this. So it has scientific validity in something known as mid latitudes, where prevailing westerly winds mean a red evening sky indicates clear weather approaching from the west, while a red morning sky suggests moisture laden clouds moving in from the east, often signaling storms. And this is something that's, good for us to know because even in modern times, it's still good to know when a storm might be coming. We have weather forecasters and meteorologists and all this, but sometimes I really feel like they're just as clueless as we are. They're just guessing. But this particular belief was actually so trusted that it influenced naval decisions, including delaying missions to avoid bad omens. So that's pretty interesting that they actually trusted this enough to actually let it affect them in actual like naval missions. Ah, James says they still say that in West Virginia as well. So you see, it's still very popular around the world, it seems like. And it's definitely a good superstition to have because it's based on actual science that can tell you the weather just as good, if not just as well, if not better, than the actual meteorologists. And I think it's pretty, telling that the Navy themselves would actually, use that to determine whether or not they needed to postpone a mission until the weather was better. So it seems to me, at least from what I can gather from the context clues, it seems like it was very respected and very accurate. So the next one we have, number 2, is the albatross. It is known as the sacred bird of the sea. Sailors believed albatross carried the souls of dead sailors, making it extremely unlucky to kill one. This is famously depicted in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, where the protagonist is cursed after shooting an albatross and forced to wear the dead bird around his neck. Seeing one alive, however, was considered good luck, symbolizing protection on long voyages. Now, okay, I'm from the South, and we have some strange things that we do around here, apparently. I haven't done this myself, but I've heard people talk about it. And apparently, in the South, some people do something known as snipe hunting. And this sounds very similar to the snipe story because they basically tell you, this crazy bird, and they want you to go out and kill one. But it turns out they're just trolling you. They're playing a prank on you, and this bird does not exist. So they just have you out there hunting for an imaginary bird all night. And then in the morning, they make fun of you and they laugh at you for trying to hunt a bird all night. And the only reason that I'm even really aware of this myself is that I saw an episode of an old show called King of the Hill. You may have heard about that. And I saw an old episode of King of the Hill where Hank actually took Bobby and his friends out snipe hunting, and they tricked him, and then he actually ended up killing like a swan or some sort of endangered animal, and they spent the whole episode trying to hide what happened. It was wild. And it kind of reminded me of that when it said that the bird was hung around his neck, because that was actually something they did in part of the episode. But yeah, just the fact that it's like a sacred bird and you're not supposed to kill it, it's basically like an endangered animal almost, is kind of what it reminds me of. So, next, our third superstition tonight is bananas on board apparently bring bad luck. So, the presence of bananas on ships, especially fishing boats in particular, is considered taboo. Now, there's no one particular reason why this happened. It was a multitude of reasons as to how people came across this particular superstition. And some of the possible reasons that people believe this is because bananas ripen quickly and they may spoil other cargo. Boy, don't I know how quickly bananas ripen, because I'm weird about my bananas. I like them almost on the edge of going rotten before I eat them. Like they start getting those brown spots on the skin on the outside, but then you open it up and there's no brown on the inside. It's all on the outside. But when you open it up on the inside, it's really sweet and it's very good. That's how I like my bananas. But anyways, and the Caribbean trade ships carrying bananas often returned empty or with mechanical issues linking them to misfortune. Oh, okay. I understand that the trade ships carrying the bananas would return empty, but why would because they got rid of all their bananas, right? But why would they return with mechanical issues? How did they link bananas to mechanical issues? That's what I want to know. How's a banana going to affect your mechanical engineering? And another reason might be snakes or spiders could potentially be hiding in the banana bunches, which would pose real dangers. You don't want to go reaching for a banana and then get hit by a black widow or a snake. That would, kind of ruin your banana appetite, I'm sure. You wouldn't want to eat very many bananas if you got bit by a snake when you reach for one. That'd probably traumatize you. You probably wouldn't want any bananas ever again for the rest of your life. And some modern fishing crews still ban bananas for tradition and superstition. Next up, number 4, we have women and redheads. They are often seen as omens of misfortune. Like Ariel, the Little Mermaid. She definitely would have been seen as misfortune and probably a siren. Now, women on board were traditionally seen as distractions that could anger the sea gods, leading to storms. So, if anyone was unaware, apparently it seems like a lot of sailors, at least back in the day, according to the superstitions, depending on what they believed, seems like some sailors may have been a little bit sexist, unfortunately. Because I kind of like their music. I like the sea shanties. Anyways, ironically enough, the female figureheads, you know how they were, but we're trying to keep the show as family friendly as possible, so I'm not going to be explicit about it. But if you know about, pirate ships, then I'm sure you know what kind of figureheads they had of women. I'll just leave it at that. On the ship prows were believed to calm the seas and guide safe passage. So, because of the appearance of these figureheads and their, let's say, endowments, apparently it calmed the seas. You can just see Poseidon down there at the bottom of the ocean looking up at the ships like, oh, let me just snap a little picture of that. Yeah, I think I'll calm the seas so I can look at that a little bit longer. Yeah, this sounds like Poseidon. Now, redheads in particular were considered bad luck if seen before departure, with some crews avoiding hiring redheaded sailors altogether. Now, a little bit deeper on that, I also heard that some people believed that Cain, like from Cain and Abel in the Bible, the first murder, some people believe that he had red hair, and that is another reason why sometimes they associate red hair with bad luck. So next up we have whistling, and such as whistling up a storm. Now, before we even get into this one, I just want to say that this is just stop whistling. You probably just shouldn't whistle because this is also a big deal in, like, I don't want to say spirituality necessarily, but like ghost stories and, you know, stuff like that, like the supernatural type stuff. This is also very common in supernatural events and ghost stories, is bad things will often happen when you whistle. James in the chat says Esau, Esau. I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce that. I apologize. Esau was covered in red hair as well. So give me a minute. I'm gonna look that up real quick. Okay, so I pulled it up, and it says real quick, it says Esau was the elder son of Isaac and Rebekah and the twin brother of Jacob as described in the Hebrew Bible. His name actually means hairy. Good one bringing this up. This is going to be interesting. So his name means hairy, reflecting his appearance at birth, red and covered in hair, as James said. He was a skilled hunter and favored by his father Isaac, while his mother Rebekah favored his younger twin brother Jacob. He is most famously known for selling his birthright, the right to inherit the family's spiritual and material blessings, to Jacob in exchange for a bowl of red, there we go with the red again, lentil stew, an act that gave rise to the phrase to sell one's birthright for a mess of pottage. So that's interesting. And it's very interesting that you bring that up because we're talking about red hair and just in general, red is like, often associated with fire and evil. Red is often associated with evil throughout history. Why is that? Many interpretations of the devil are seen as red. But back to whistling up a storm. I got off on a little side tangent there. It's okay. That's why we have fun here because we're not strict, you know? The side tangents are what make us unique from the other people. So anyways, whistling up a storm. Whistling aboard was forbidden as it was believed to whistle up the wind or summon storms. Oh, because you're blowing more air into the wind, maybe? Is that how that logic works? I don't know. A practical origin may be that mutineers used whistles to communicate, making officers wary of unauthorized signals. Ah, okay, that one makes a little more sense to me. They would often use whistles throughout history to, be warning signs for other people to let you know where the battles were taking place. I've heard that used often throughout history. All right, now here's one that we actually talked about. Another one we briefly talked about with the Mary Celeste. Number 6, renaming a ship is 7 years of bad luck. Because with the Mary Celeste, previously it had been named the Amazon, and then when they sold it, they changed the name to the Mary Celeste. And that was when the crew went missing. Now, changing a ship's name without a proper denaming and rechristening ceremony brings 7 years of bad luck. So it's specifically without doing the proper ceremonies. The ritual involves removing all traces of the old name, appeasing the sea gods, and breaking a bottle of champagne against the hull. Oh, that's what we see in all the movies all the time. Like when you see ships getting ready to take off for their maiden voyage, you always see them break that bottle of champagne on the side of the ship. So that's why they do that. It's actually a ritual, apparently. Okay. Cruise lines like MSC Cruises avoid Deck 17 and many skip Deck 13 due to regional superstitions. So I don't know why 17 is unlucky, but I've actually done research on the number 13 in particular in the past because I was curious, why is it unlucky? And as far as I can tell, I've actually traced the number 13 being unlucky all the way back to the Knights Templar because it was Friday the 13th was the day that um all their bad stuff happened when they got uh what was it? Banished, excommunicated. I'm trying to use polite words here, but it was not pretty. Not at all. All because some king didn't want to pay his fair share of his money that he owed to the Knights Templar. They helped a king gain power, and then once he gained power, he was like, you know what? I have power. I don't feel like I have to pay them anymore. I'll just banish them. And yeah. Anyways, so that was why the number 13 is unlucky. Now, the next up we have animals as omens. So black cats were considered good luck. Ah, well, this one is different. Normally, black cats are considered bad luck here on land, but this is saying that they were considered good luck. I guess on the ocean, black cats were considered good luck, especially on British and Irish ships due to their rodent hunting abilities. Okay, so they would hunt the rats before they gave people the plague. That makes sense. Now, polydactyl cats, specifically ones with extra toes, were prized for better balance at sea. Sharks, following a ship, were seen as harbingers of death, so I guess they did play with their food. Dolphins were good omens, often indicating land nearby. Now, there is a lot of stuff that goes on with dolphins. Dolphins are wild. They got echolocation, they're highly, highly intelligent. I've heard they're, you know, let's just say active in certain areas of intimacy. And I'll just leave it at that. And I've also heard that if you have dolphins nearby when someone is pregnant, they say that their child will be incredibly, incredibly smart because apparently the child can absorb like those echolocation things. But I don't know how true that is. It's just, one of those things. But it's very interesting to think about. And I have seen a few, not many, but I have seen a few stories about people who actually did have children when they were pregnant, near dolphins, and their children are very, very smart. Now, next up, we have tattoos and charms for protection. So, Fridays were avoided for departure due to Christ's crucifixion. The superstition was so strong that some naval missions were even delayed. They followed this one very closely. Candlemas Day and Thursdays, or Thor's Day, I see what they did there, were also considered inauspicious, bad days to travel. Saying goodbye before sailing was taboo. Some would say see you later instead. Yo, I've literally been doing that my whole life because I always thought saying goodbye sounded like so final and definitive, where see you later was like promising to stay alive long enough to see the other person later. It's always been like a very spiritual thing for me. So I love how that's actually like a thing now. Oh, I love that. Now, next up, the word rabbit was avoided, as rabbits were known to chew through ropes on cargo ships. So that definitely would not be good. You definitely would not want a rabbit to chew through your rope on a cargo ship, because then everything would go into the ocean. Then you wouldn't be able to make any money. So you definitely wouldn't want that to happen. Number 10, coins under the mast. Placing coins under the mast during construction was a tradition to ensure safe passage in life and the afterlife. Oh, so it's like I forgot what belief system it was, but where they had Hades and in the afterlife, like the Dante's Inferno type stuff, where you needed to give coins to the ferryman to pass over into the afterlife. It reminds me of that. It originate oh the Greek myth of Charon or Sharon or Karen, Charon. I've always pronounced it Charon, I believe, but I've heard it pronounced a few different ways. So I'm honestly not sure of the exact proper enunciation. But it was the ferryman of the dead who required a coin to transport the souls across the river Styx, like I was, saying a second ago. But though it was Charon or Charon. Yes, Greek. That is right. Thank you, James. And this ensured that if the ship sank, the sailors could pay their fare to the afterlife. So that one makes a lot of sense to me. Now, next up, we have passing salt hand to hand is bad luck. Well, that just seems like a common sense thing. You shouldn't pass salt via your hand. You're going to drop a lot. Sailors believe passing salt directly between hands could bring misfortune. This stems from land based superstition that spilled salt symbolized betrayal, such as Judas at the Last Supper. To avoid disaster, salt was placed on the table instead of handed over. That makes sense. I like that one too. I like that. Because I'm always worried, like when I go to hand something, I'm always worried, what if I drop it? What if they drop it? I get very anxious about that. So when I'm trying to pass someone something, a lot of times I'll set it down and let them pick it up themselves. It, to, you know, anyways, I'm getting way too deep into the salt. I'm lost in the salt, as they say. Turning bread upside down also brings bad luck, apparently. Inserting a cut loaf of bread was taboo and believed to doom the ship? Let's see, why was this? Possibly linked to bakers hiding moldy loaves or to pirate hangings where an upside down loaf signaled a condemned man. Oh, that got dark. I love it. So basically, upside down bread means you're on death row, I guess. That's kind of wild. So the next time you want to threaten somebody, but you don't want to get in trouble for it, just turn their bread loaf upside down. They won't get the message, but you sure will. You'll definitely know what you meant. Even if no one else does, you'll know. Now, redheads bring misfortune if spoken to first, digging a little bit deeper into the redhead lore. Meeting a redhead before boarding was bad luck unless the sailor spoke first, as we said earlier, which was rooted in the Jonah belief. Redheads were seen as omens of disaster. Speaking first was thought to neutralize their curse. Now, let's see, the Jonah belief was, let's see, I think I have that right here. Um, yeah, I actually don't know what the Jonah belief is. So if you'll give me 1 second, I will look that up. Should only take me a few seconds. I'll be right back. All right. So this says the Jonah belief regarding redheads originates from a scene in the Australian TV show Summer Heights High, where a character named Jonah justifies bullying a red haired student by calling him a ranga, a slang term derived from orangutan. Jonah argues that since people are racist toward FOBs, foreign born, it's acceptable for him to be racist toward redheads. The char. No. Okay. I'm done. But yeah. So that's apparently a thing. Anyways, let's continue. Let's continue, okay? I don't like that one. I'm not really a fan of racism. I don't like that one. Throwing a crew member overboard to catch fish. Some Scottish fishermen believed throwing a man overboard and hauling him back would ensure a good catch. This one seems interesting. It was symbolic of appeasing the sea gods or testing the crew's unity. Because, nothing says unity like throwing someone overboard. Oh, make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. Yeah, I'm going to show you that you can trust me by just tossing you overboard. Because nothing screams trust and unity like that. And it was likely a ritualistic tradition rather than a literal practice. Okay. Still, though, if you're going to pretend to throw me overboard. Oh, hold up, hold up. James says, I think they mean the biblical Jonah who got swallowed by a whale. Okay. Okay. Thank you, James. That makes a lot more sense than that weird whatever that was that I read a minute ago. Thank you, James, for clarifying. Always helping us with the information that we need when there is just so much information out there that we don't even understand what we're trying to find out. Thank you, James. So, yeah, but like I said, I don't think throwing someone overboard, even symbolically, is really going to make me trust you any more than, if anything, it's probably going to make me trust you less and make us more divided as a crew. So, but I could definitely see it being symbolic of appeasing the sea gods. I could see that one. I just don't see it as being symbolic of unity. No, I don't see that. Now, they say a sick man won't die until high tide. It was believed that a dying sailor couldn't pass until high tide. Families and crews would watch the tides closely, interpreting survival until flood tide as a sign of recovery. It reflects the deep connection between life, death, and the sea's rhythms. Now, this would be a good one to practice if you were in a military family and had a burial at sea. This might be something that you could, you know, participate in as a belief. James says he has an encyclopedia of arcane knowledge. That is very good. I love it. Because I look up a lot of stuff, but I also forget a lot of stuff. My knowledge is kind of like it comes and goes. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. So thank you for helping me out with that. Thank you for clarifying for us. Next up, mermaids are supposedly omens of doom. Is that why the ship wrecked in The Little Mermaid? Because she was an omen of doom? While sometimes seen as beautiful, mermaids were often harbingers of shipwrecks. Sighting one meant impending disaster, possibly due to hallucinations from long voyages. Manatees or dugongs may have inspired these myths. Now, here's interesting that they mentioned that mermaids meant impending disaster and were often harbingers of shipwrecks because, interestingly enough, pop culture reference, One Piece actually had a man calling himself Captain Vanderdecken, who was piloting the Flying Dutchman, and he was in love with a mermaid who was the princess of the ruler of the sea. And it's very interesting reading about that because the Flying Dutchman is often associated with shipwrecks and impending disaster. So it's interesting that they put that much detail and thought into the reference in the show. Like, it's very interesting how much they actually got right, I suppose. Now, next up, we have manta rays can supposedly drag your ship to Davy Jones's locker. Sailors feared manta rays would attach to anchors and pull ships underwater. Okay, I don't know much about manta rays, but are they really that strong? Could they really pull a ship? I don't know, but dang, they'd have to be strong to pull a ship down like that. Davy Jones' locker refers to the ocean floor as the grave of drowned sailors. The myth reflects fear of unseen sea creatures and unexplained sinkings. Once again, another thing that is often associated with the Flying Dutchman. Now, earrings can supposedly protect against drowning. They say gold hoop earrings were worn to pay for a Christian burial if the sailor drowned. Also believed to improve eyesight or prevent drowning. A pierced earlobe often marked crossing the equator or sailing around the world. And now you can get your ear pierced at a professional because I don't know. I got my ear pierced at a Walmart when I was like 5, but it was also like in a mall, so I'm like I don't think we have malls anymore and I'm confused about that and I don't know what to say. I don't know how to get an ear pierced anymore. I guess you would see um a piercing artist of some sort. I honestly don't know, and I just realized that as I was talking. I was like, "Well, I guess you can't really get your ear pierced at a kiosk in the mall anymore." Like, yeah. And then sharks following the ship supposedly were a signal of death. A shark trailing was seen as a sign that a crew member would die. Sharks were believed to follow ships to feed on the dead, making them omens of doom. Now, sharks were often attracted to waste thrown overboard, is the reality of it. So if you threw, your trash overboard or, your old food, the sharks would probably try to come and eat that. So if you ever needed to get rid of a body, dot, 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 shark, 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 there you go. Problem solved. And the last one that we have for tonight is the Flying Dutchman, and it was seen as an omen of doom. We talked about that one recently, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But as we said before, it was doomed to sail forever, never able to make it back to a port. It was but what most likely happened, sighting it meant disaster or death, and it was based on a 17th century legend of a captain who defied the storm and was cursed by the sea. But what most likely happened is he probably didn't make it through that storm. And when people are out on the ocean with all that massive expanse of nothingness, I think their mind probably plays tricks on them. And they see things that are not necessarily what they think they're seeing. And with that, that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you. Thank you to James very much for helping me with the information tonight. You knew what I needed when the reference was wrong. You were there to let me know because I definitely knew something was wrong about that. So thank you again on that one. And as always, stay uncanny. We will see you next time.